Today we're going to be going over domain and range continuous. So continuous means that values in a set can be taken on any value in a finite or infinite set. Graph is a single unbroken curve or line. So you'll notice that there's a connected line here. When you have a connected line, that changes your domain and your range. Yesterday we just said our domain were those points, whatever point we had. But today we don't have specific points. We have a connected line. So this connected line means that any value between these points are possible. For example, if I were to pick a point on this line right here, I can pick maybe half, I could pick 0.75, I could pick 0.6, or maybe 1.2 or 1.111. So my values that I can pick are infinite between this whole line right here. So when we're going to write the domain and range for these types of graphs, we're going to have to look at the circle. If it's going to be an open circle, remember that you use less than or greater than. If it's a completely closed circle, you'll be using less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Now for our domain are your x values. So I'm going to have to look at the x-axis right here. My goal is to figure out what is the lowest x value that I have right here. So on this x, I have a -1, -2, and a half. That's the furthest left my graph goes. So you're thinking of it from left to right. How far left does it go? Well, it goes to -2.5. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write down -2.5 for my domain. My far right value is all the way over here. So this is how far right the graph goes. It goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put it goes all the way to +5. Since the domain stands for x's, you're going to stick an x in the middle. And then you have an inequality. Is -2.5 less than or greater than 5? Well, that's less than, right? So it's less than. Now, can it be equal to -2.5? Is it possible? Yes, because there's a completely closed circle there, it is possible to be equal to -2.5. Now, whenever I go all the way to the right, it shows that the line continues and then it stops right there. That open circle means that it can't touch 5 or it cannot be 5. So I'm going to put less than 5. It cannot be equal to 5. So that would be my answer for the domain. Okay, let's look at the range. The range is how far up or down your graph goes on the y-axis, so up and down. So we're looking at how high does it go? Well, if you look at your graph, it only goes this high. So you're looking at how far up and then how far down does your graph go. So if I'm looking at how far up it goes all the way up to 1.5 right there. So I'm going to put the highest value is 1.5 right here. And then I have to figure out what's the lowest value. Well, that's -2. So here we have a value of, trying to make that a little bit darker, -2 and 1.5. Now it's a y value, so I'm going to stick a y in there. Let me just choose a different color. So -2, we have our y, and we have the 1.5. Okay, -2. Is that less than or greater than 1.5? Well, it's less than, so I'm going to put less than. Can it be equal to -2? Is it a solid dot right here at -2? Yes, so I'm going to put less than or equal to. Then I have to figure out how high it goes. It goes up to 1.5, so it's less than 1.5. Now look at these inequalities. These inequalities will always be facing the same direction. Same direction. They will never face opposites, okay? So if one is less than, the other one has to be less than. If one is greater than, the other one has to be greater than. They'll never be facing opposites like this. That is wrong. They won't ever be facing that way. Okay, let's look at example 2. For example 2, we're looking at domain. Again, remember domain means how far left and how far right does your graph go. And you always start least to greatest. So that's why I start left then right. So left over here, and then how far right does it go over here? Sorry, my line's a little bit crooked. It's hard to write on here. But left to right. So left, our furthest left is -6, -6. Over here, the farthest right it goes is 5, 6, 7, 8. So it goes all the way to +8. Now, domain is your x, so we still put an x in the middle. Can it be equal to -6? Yes, because it's a solid point. And again, remember -6 is less than 8. So it can be less than or equal to. And then over here, can it be equal to 8? Yes, because it's also a solid dot. So less than or equal to 8. Next, our range is how far up or how far down the graph goes. So we're looking at the highest point that it goes and then the lowest point that it goes, that it reaches. Okay, so up and down, since we start with least to greatest first, we start least as the smallest, which is how far down does the graph go? Well, it goes down to -1, -2. And since it's a solid line hitting -2, it can equal -2. So it can be equal to -2. Then I stick my y in the middle, okay? And how high did the graph reach? So if you look at the graph, it went all the way up to +2. So less than or equal to +2. Example 3. So starting with domain, remember again, this is left to right. How far left and right does your graph go? Well, notice that if I'm trying to figure out the farthest left point, that arrow shows that it continues to push out all the way to the left. So it'll keep going all the way to the left to -infinity. And then if I try to figure out how far right it goes, well, notice that arrow right there also pushes it out to the right. So it will go all the way to the left and all the way to the right. So we call that all real numbers. Any number is possible since it pushes out from the left all the way to the right. Okay, now let's look at the range. The range is how far up or down does that graph go? So if I'm looking at how far up does it go, well, notice that arrow means it goes all the way up, right? Continues to go up to +infinity. But how far down does it go? Do you notice that it never goes below this point right here? So because it never goes below -3, we're going to write all of our y's are greater than or equal to -3. If they all went below it, then I would put less than. But because they're all above it, all my y's are always going to be greater than or equal to -3. It'll never go below that. Example 4, domain. So how far left and right is my graph going? So if I look at how far left does it hit, well, that arrow, remember, it means it continues to push out. It continues to push out this way. So it's going to go all the way to the left, all the way to the right. So that is all real numbers. Or you could type in all real numbers. Okay, you can type that in there also. Okay, the next one, our range, is how far up and down does the graph go? Up and down. Well, remember those arrows show that it goes all the way up, so it keeps going up, but does it go all the way down? No, it never goes below this point. Where does it never go below? Well, -3. So all of our y's are greater than or equal to -3. Now, how do I know it's equal to -3? Because it's a solid line and it hits -3. That means that it can be equal to -3.